Okay, I am now recording. Sorry.
Okay.
It's okay. People, I pretty guaranteed that I do not want to just be the only connection with you ever. So, um, but see, now I don't even remember what I was saying. But what was I saying?
Oh, I'm talking about connections and that, oh my gosh,
Oh,
now
why?
my,
So anyway, well, what it sparked in me of why I wanted to connect with you so badly is my old way of thinking, and I won't even say common sense because it's not common sense, but my like what you almost said to me, which was like insulated, protective way of thinking, which is the way I saw it, was don't reach out to her just because you think she's important and you think she's impactful, and like interview her to let her know that, well, here's how you've impacted me. And then what? Like she's gonna think you're a creeper and psycho, and
come
I went,
on.
but you know what I mean? That was my old, because I am a lot. And that's one of the things I like about Rosie is she's a lot. And I embraced her fullness immediately because I was like, hell yeah. Like let's fly our freak flags. Let's go. Like, dude, yours isn't high enough. Like, don't you better raise the hand with your hairy armpit if you want to. Let's go. Um and
Oh, my
and
Rosie.
when I was listening to you, what I really liked is I caught the humanity and authenticity because you were very calm. And then at one point you went, fuck. And I was like, oh, we're going to be friends. We are going to be friends. But one of the things I think it's important that, like sending a text message,
Yeah.
that's nice to get a text to say, hey, I heard you being vulnerable and putting yourself, closing your eyes and dancing on the screen and being for a woman, it's got to be a whole different thing. And coming from Venezuela, it's probably a whole nother level of different things. Being a guy, a white male, it's pretty easy for me. And even then, I have tons of insecurities. So I couldn't even imagine. But I'm no longer living in that fear because that's not my frequency. And so, I know I joke about it resonated with me, the frequency and stuff, but listening to you immediately, first of all, when Rosie said, you're going to love her. She is so impactful. I'm in because I don't want, the only thing I'm worried about now is wasting opportunities. Not, not like I'm never going to get them back, not in a scarcity mindset, but I get greedy. You know what I mean? Like, and so I reached out to you and I'm like, she's probably going to think I'm weird because I didn't want to say, hey, Rosie, can I have her personal deets? I don't even know if people say deets anymore, but I don't want, so I was like, all right, here she is. I reached out on this platform. I reached out on this platform. I reached out on this platform. And that, to me, that was my push, what I felt directed to. However you responded or didn't respond, that's not up to me. And what I loved is, you responded, and of course I was all like, but I didn't want to just say and leave it. It's not good is not good enough is kind of what I'm looking at. And I see you and I appreciate you and I'm grateful that you, not even knowing you, but seeing that you're authentic and you're authentically being vulnerable in front of others is is not comfortable. It's not, there's nothing guaranteed. Well, there is. Growth is guaranteed, but there's no security guaranteed. There's no acceptance or any of that stuff. And you're doing it honestly to connect. And you're like, I hope you hear me. And you're like, listen, excuse me, there's my cat's attacking a bag. And now I got to go mom it. Like it's what's happening, and it's still one of my favorites because you were off screen, and I could picture you, and being like, hey, hands on hips, doing all, Linda, what are you doing with that bag? It's my bag now. The cat being like, mom,
Like what?
you always let me play with this bag. What are you doing? Like, not today. Um, and And I think the world is in need of you. It's in need of
Thank you.
the effort it takes to literally close your eyes and dance, not just in the bathroom. And I know you said, to get back into that, that's okay sometimes. When you know you're doing pretty good with that is when you do that everywhere. And it's like when you drive by somebody and they are just singing in their car, and and it's funny because it can be a kid who his pants are down to his knees, and he's banging and he's throwing his hands doing stuff. That's beautiful
It's
because
beautiful.
it's not, oh, I have to be this certain way because this, that, because that's trying to dampen our frequency. And your frequency spoke immediately to me, even if it is different. It's so important. And so I don't want to understate that enough. And so that's why I felt so excited that you were willing to be on here with my 21
Sure.
subscribers. I'm like, and if
It
you look
doesn't
at all my
matter.
Facebook
Connection
account,
is still
or
connection.
yeah, like all my Instagrams, I'm like, I almost always have more, I'm following more people than are following me because I search that out. That's my intention. Um, like when I listen to you, I I love Audible and I love listening to it, but it's hard because I want to write stuff down. Like when stuff hits me, I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to miss that, and I really don't want to kill people while I'm driving."
I feel like the same way whenever I listen to Audible and I'm like, gosh, like I'm listening to Judgment Detox by Gabriella Bernstein. She's beautiful. If you haven't ever heard about her, she's incredible. She's just this like, she's another unicorn.
Okay.
she, it's just like the whole book is kind of going into talking about judgment and like why we judge others and why in the moments like it's all of a sudden like our judgment comes up, but there are so many parts in that book that you just want to like, oh my god, hold on, let me write this down. And I always listen to audibles and audios in the car, so it's
Yep.
like I completely understand. But yeah, she's amazing. She's like, if I have like well, I actually have a vision board, but she's not on it. But I'm thinking I need to create another one. But like, she's my role model as to like where I want to establish myself and get to. Her impact is so beautiful.
Have you
She's
reached
such
out to
a,
her?
I have not.
Hmm.
I could do that.
Hmm.
All right, let me just. Today I'm going to reach out to Gabriella Bernstein. I actually will. I really will. I
Well,
want to.
because obviously you want to. You told me you did.
But it's like everything that she has, and it's like the way that she talks in her interviews. The books she has are magnificent, and then it's like um her whole, she has an app where it's like this beautiful community. It's this whole entire thing, and I just like it's so beautiful everything she's doing, and it's so impactful, and the way that she talks, and the way that she connects about like spirituality, and it's very 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 familiar because it's the way that I am, and it's just beautiful. Her and I'm blanking on the other girl's name. It's almost like a mixture of both of them. She has the book You Are a Badass. Jen Sincero. 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 The way that Jen talks and like the way that she like just the way that she is, she's like, I don't really, and like if you listen to the audible, you'll love it. And she's just like, I don't really give a fuck. And it's like that's like the way that she is, and the way that I write, and I'm writing a book right now, and it's funny. It's funny because when I read it out loud and I read it to my boyfriend, he's like, I literally feel like you're just talking to me right now. And I'm like, well, that's the point. Like, that's what I want. I want you to feel like I'm telling you a story and we're on my couch. Like, that's what I want. and
That's so
like,
awesome.
but those are two women that inspire me, and they have inspired me greatly. And I definitely, I feel like I want to, and I embody them in any way that I can. Really beautiful.
Maybe that's why I was to connect with you, so you can connect with them. Who knows?
I think so. Let's
But
see.
I like that because whether or not, like, if you reach out, that's your frequency. Oh,
This is happening.
oh, that is that's awesome.
She goes into this mode where all of a sudden she really needs you to touch her. And she'll like be sleeping. Just like, I got that mode. I know what that is. And she'll literally just be sleeping, and all of a sudden she's like, meow. And I'm like, oh, you need cuddles right now? Come here.
Yeah, my wife would be like, "Oh my gosh, that is a furrier version of my husband." Like that's what it is. Because she'll be working, and I'm working from home was not good for
For
her
your
because
relationship?
yeah, because I'm home, and so I'm like, "Hi," and she's looking at me like, "No," because of course
So
my son's home too, and he's very similar. So he'll just pop out of the room and be like, "Guess what? Chicken butt." Boom, back in the room, and I'm like, "I
oh my
love
god.
it." Um,
That's my
so
boyfriend. My boyfriend knows to leave me alone. My boyfriend, like, I mean, his job like sometimes requires him to do stuff. He's a personal assistant, so there's days where they don't need him. He doesn't even have to talk to them or whatever. But then there's so those days he's like, "You want me to go?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you gotta go." Sorry, they're remodeling downstairs, and there's like so many different noises. And there's like, it's almost like a dragon is downstairs. Ugh.
no, but the dragon is in your room. That's right.
I feel that.
That's awesome. So I don't usually have any questions other
Okay.
than like I don't come into any of these with questions because to me that becomes then self satisfying and like selfish in a way. And I much prefer the let's see where it goes and just talk about that. So
Yeah.
Rosie tried to tell me somewhat of your story and
Okay.
I stopped her because I didn't want her to taint the well of open mindedness that I
Yeah.
had. So, if you would like to, I would love to hear how you got on this impactful journey and how you became such a dragon badass. Because you know, I'm now going to call you the dragon. Like, that is what I'm doing, and I'm sorry. I will try not to always reference you when I'm saying it, but
I
I'll
love
be
it.
like,
I love it so much.
I met this Venezuelan buffalo dragon. You don't even get it. But she likes chicken wings from the Anchor Bar. We did some team building stuff in Buffalo. So
Oh, you
I've been
did
this
the
several times.
anchor bar. That's why you just said that, and I was like, oh my god, I feel like I know what he's talking about.
It's supposed to
The
be the
anchor
first
bar.
wings or something, yeah. They're
Yeah,
really
the
good.
anchor bar. They're really, yes. Jeez, super throwback. Um.
I try to keep
Okay.
you on your toes.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. So I was born in Venezuela, uh, and we left when I was 4. But the way that we left, it was very abrupt. My mom kind of like stole me, and she was running away from home because the man that she had left, technically left my dad for, the family didn't like him because he was like the hood rat growing up with my mom's brother. So they ran away, take me. He was born in Boston. So he had already like his like citizenship and everything. So, but he was Venezuelan. So then we moved to Florida. We're only in Kissimmee next to Orlando for about 6 months. And he brings only one of his kids, and he's one of 3. And I am one of 2 at the time. And so he brings his oldest, and my mom brings her youngest. And my older sister, that's 4 years older, had to stay with my dad, which was really hard. So I was 4 and she was about 8. And so we make it over to, after Florida, we go to Texas, and we live in Texas from age 4 to about age 6. And this is where I learned how to speak English. I learned English in the woodlands in Texas.
Yeah.
And I guess this is also the place where I learned how to love hot and spicy food. I love spicy food. And then we drive up to Colorado when I was 6. And on our way up, there's like a very traumatic scene where the cops come and take away his son because he had technically stolen him, like kidnapped him from his mother in Venezuela. So it takes him. I just remember like the rest of that trip back to the house or to Colorado was just silence. That's all I
Oh,
remember. It was like crippling silence. Like no one was talking. It was very interesting. Um, so then we get to Colorado. We live in a motel, but it was like a residence motel,
like a
right?
long
So
stay. Yeah.
yeah, like one of those like lodge hotel things where it's just like they're nice, they're just like residency. And I just remember there was a Dalmatian that lived next door to us. This woman that kind of became like my grandma that lived above. And my mom and I would dog sit the Dalmatian. And whenever we would dog sit, it was really interesting because this is kind of, and my mom always says it, she's like, I feel like you took everything, all the information from me to you in this moment. So whenever we would take the Dalmatian on walks and stuff, she would stop and we would sit in the grass and she would meditate. And my mom would do like meditations and she would talk to me about chakras and all these different things. Now, my stepdad at the time, he was super Catholic and it's almost like he really shunned out all of that world, which is the same world. and he, and he, she stopped. There's a moment where I just never saw her do it again. And then we find a house and we move into the house. I think I was still 6 or maybe just turned 7. And all of his kids came from Venezuela, the 3 of them. And at the time that they come, my sister also comes from Venezuela with my grandma. So before it was just me, and now it's me, my sister, and then my 3 stepbrothers. And my mom was pregnant, and then she had 1. So we all are in this one house, and it's interesting because this is kind of like where all my traumas started, because on me being alone, and now it's like everyone is there. I had one step sibling that he was my age, and he started tormenting me about like bullying me, and he would bully me about my weight. He'd bully me about my cheeks. He would just like I was like, you look at pictures and it's crazy because I look at pictures now and I'm like, oh my god, like I was not even like chubby. I just had chubby cheeks. I was a very like
All
chubby cheeked
kids
little kids
do.
have chubby cheeks.
Yeah.
So, but he would pull on my cheeks and he would pull on my belly and he would like punch like my gut, and it was very traumatizing. And my sister, she wouldn't save me because she came from not seeing my mom for like 2 years, and she almost felt uh like envy of me. So
Oh
then my
yeah.
older blood sister wouldn't save me. He would torment me. And then the other 2 that were older but not by much, the one girl would also like help him. So it was just like everyone was against me. And then in those moments, I didn't understand why my stepdad, that had become my dad, was no longer giving me any attention. And I just didn't get it. I was little and I was like, maybe there's something wrong with me. And I
Internalized it.
really deeply felt like there was something wrong with me. So then I started to think like, what do I do? Well, he loves my stepbrother, so I have to look like him. So I started wearing all of his clothes and I started doing everything. I started dirt biking. I started BMXing. I started skating. I became this total tomboy at like age 6, 7 because I felt like that's what I had to do. I had to be like him because that's what was right. And then, so then that happens. And when I'm about 10 years old, we had moved to a bigger house because there's so many of us. And when I was 10 years old, my sister went to Utah to Lake Powell to have like a like so like her friend invited her on a boat and with her family. And it was the summer. It was like July. And then the three step siblings went to Venezuela to go visit their mom. And my grandma, so it was only me and my little brother that at the time he was already 4, that we were at the house. And my mom was pregnant and she's
Again.
9 months pregnant and it's um, July 2010, 2010, July 2010, July 2000, no,
Yeah.
2001, sorry,
2001.
2001. And so my grandma is coming in for the birth of my little sister. And I haven't seen her since the birth of my little brother, so 4 years. And so we're all excited. We go pick her up, and it's just me, my little brother, and my mom. We go, and it was really interesting because on our way to the airport in Colorado, we get lost. And when we get lost, there's like a homeless guy on the side of the road on the highway, and his poster says everything's gonna be okay. And we're just like, what? Like, what is that? Like, what is going on? Like, what is this? And I'm 10 years old, and I'm just like, that was weird. Like I'm starting to pick up on little things. So I was just like, that's strange. And my mom was like, that's weird. Like it was a whole moment. So we pick up my grandma, we bring her back to the house. Now it's very late and it's like 11 p.m. They send me off to bed. My little brother goes to bed. And then I wake up in the morning and my grandma's there and I'm very happy. I haven't seen her. And she's like, Steffi, you know, like when people pass and like people go to heaven, if they're bad, they go to hell. Like it's like she just puts on like this whole entire story of like what happens. And I'm just sitting there like, all right, like grandma, like
Yeah, like
they brush my teeth. Like we've been sitting here for like a hot minute. Like I think I need to get up. Like I don't know. And then I remember all of a sudden hearing my mom laughing, like hysterically. And I'm like, why is my mom laughing? What's going on? And it's like so early. And she's like, no, my love, your mom is not laughing. She's hysterically crying. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, your stepdad passed away in a car accident last night. He was coming down from a business trip in the mountains and his car hit the railing and it flipped and he didn't make it. And the car, I guess, exploded and he even had a heart attack. So I was like, what? So in that moment, so that was
that
like
sign is weird.
weird. So his time of death was when we were getting lost. It was the same time. So then now it's like, oh my gosh, now. So from that point on, my three step siblings, they stayed in Venezuela with their mom. My sister comes home from Utah. My mom has the baby 10 days after he passes. My grandma never goes back to Venezuela. Now my grandma's illegal. because she's overstaying her stay. Nothing is left to us. I find out that he wouldn't marry my mom, so he wouldn't give her papers because he was actually like very manipulative, and I had no idea. I was little. And like within all of this, so I'm basically just hitting all my traumas so you
I
understand.
do. I do.
So it's okay. I had gone to school in Venezuela. Then I went to school in Texas, elementary school. Then we lived in the motel and I went to an elementary school. Then we moved to this one house and I went to a different elementary school.
Then
Then
you
we
went to
moved
the
to a
bigger house.
bigger house and we moved, if we stayed in the same, I remember staying in the same district, but
Changing
something
schools.
happened where all of a sudden, when we moved to the bigger house and I stayed in the same school, all of a sudden they changed the district. So we
Yeah.
went to a different school. And then he passes away, and we end up, my mom went from the Catholic church to a Christian church. And in the Christian church, she talks about what's going on. She talks about her story. And this Spanish lady basically just tells us, you guys can come live with me. In my mansion on the golf course, we have an extra 4 bedrooms, and you guys can come and stay with us as long as you want. Out of nowhere. So then we move in with her. And then that was another school.
7.
7. So then we lived with her for 8 months. And then my mom finally, this was like another point of trauma for me. So my grandma comes and we go to the pool. It's August, so it's hot in Colorado. It's very hot.
Oh yeah.
And the rec centers are all open and all the pools are open. And so we go to the rec and I'm going down the slide, and then my grandma is like I see her and she's like, come here. And I'm just like, oh, like my grandma, I haven't seen her for years. So excited, like gonna run up to her. And I'm like, yeah. And then she's like, suck in your stomach. I didn't know that you had gotten so chubby.
The same woman who told you your stepfather passed away. Thank you for the fountain of amazing information.
And then it was like,
suck in your belly. And you were 10.
I was 10. And then the background of my grandma, she was a model. My mom was a model. Like they all, it's like you have to be.
Mm-hmm. You're old school model.
I hadn't straightened my hair in a year. I just went to Boston and straightened it for the first time in a year. So this is why it's still straight. But I didn't know I had curly hair until I was 21, because I was taught to straighten and to make sure that I was perfectly kempt.
Oh.
And then when I was a tomboy, my mom was dying inside. Dying. She died inside for a couple of years. Like she didn't know what to do with me. And I was like, I took my dresses to my stepbrother. We burned them. Like it was like a whole. So then kind of that trauma of the weight was starting to really be a like common factor in my mind. Like it was like
now it wasn't just from boys. It was from grandmas too. Yeah.
It was grandma, the woman that I just like love so much. Like this grandma now is telling me that I'm chubby. And so from that point, so then we live with this Spanish woman, amazing woman. And then after 8 months, my mom ends up getting a job at a apartment complex cleaning the rooms. So then we end up leaving there and living in the apartment complex because they're giving her a great discount.
Yes.
But now we're moving districts. So now, instead of me going into, I was already in 6th grade. And in the district that I was at, 6th grade was middle or elementary school. And then we moved to a new district halfway through the year. And now I'm in middle school. And I'm just like, no, I was at the top of my class and now I'm not. I don't know. So
With no time to process it.
oh my God, there's no time to process. So we're there, and now I'm in 6th grade. So then we're like, it's good. Then we end up getting a duplex, and we go, and thank God it was the same district. But then I'm in the same, this was the first time that I was in the same school, 6th and 7th and 8th grade. The first time. So it was amazing. And I built really beautiful friends. I still have like 2 friends from there. And we moved to this duplex, and then my mom falls in love with this guy that's in New York. And she basically is just like, I remember she went, and it was my 13th birthday. My birthday's December 13th. So it
That
was
was a big
like,
one. 13 on 13.
so she wasn't there. She was in New York visiting him. And it was literally like, it was like, it hit my soul. Like, I was like, you're not here for my golden birthday? Like, my rainbow birthday? You're not here? It was like a whole thing in my body. I remember we celebrated it with the Spanish lady, and she became like my aunt. And she was like, you need to understand it. Everything is okay. You don't need, and I was crying. I was like, you don't get it. You don't understand. Anyways, 2 months later, now it's like February, she's like, I'm in 8th grade. And she's like, we're going to move to New York. And I'm like, dude, this is the first time that I'm at a school for 3 years. Can I just fucking stay in one place? One place, one. So then she moves us to Saratoga Springs, New York. Gorgeous by Albany. Very pretty. They're famous for their racetrack, their horse racetrack. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely stunning. We moved there, and now I'm in 8th grade. Still, I'm in the 9th place. And now I'm in the same. I'm in 8th grade. I go to this place. So it's cool. I start making friends. And then we find out that this man that she's been talking to is hiddenly an alcoholic. So then starts the incredible, crazy fights, the drunk fights, the scary fights that I had never seen that in my life fights, because there had never really been drinking in my family. No one really drank. So now it's like he has this anger, and like he doesn't touch us, but it's verbal abuse. And then we end up living in an apartment and then in a house. And then he starts not liking that my grandma's with us. And now my grandma's the problem. A whole bunch of stuff happens. When he's drunk, he even talks about my weight. And then it's like there's this whole, it's like he knows what to grab to make you feel. So then that happens, and then I'm just like, gosh, like when are these things gonna end? And like they break up, and he has 5 kids that live in Lewiston, Buffalo, Lewiston. So my mom moves to Colorado. I missed about 2 months of I missed 2 months of 9th grade because we moved to Colorado. She didn't know what to do. They get back together. Then we move, and then we moved to Lewiston, New York, which thank God I finished 9th all the way through senior year. But there was so much instability. It was a constant roller coaster. They would be together. We would move into a house. They would break up. He got a condo. In the years, I numbed. My entire high school year, I numbed. I started smoking weed when I was in 8th grade. I numbed 9th grade. I would get belligerently drunk all the time. 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. I was always wasted. I was always drunk. I was always high. I was like trying everything and anything because I didn't care. I never got into pills, thank goodness. I didn't even know what ecstasy was, so that's good. Um, I but eighth grade, no, ninth grade, I started doing mushrooms. And that, believe it or not, is actually what started connecting me to thinking that there was something more. And it was ninth grade when I started to kind of see like different things that I didn't want to see, but that they were just there. And then I was just like, okay, but I wasn't putting too much mind to it. But and I would do
It was a
mushrooms. I was doing mushrooms, like I did mushrooms probably like, I want to say like 3 times ninth grade, 5 times 10th grade, 6 times 11th, 12th. It was like 20 times in one year. It was like I was doing them a lot and I was starting to see a lot. There was something that I was just like, there's something more. There really is something
something
more.
awoken in you.
Something completely woke up in me, but I was still very lost. Between ninth and 12th grade, I probably had slept with half of the school because one thing, it was like, I couldn't imagine having a boyfriend. I couldn't imagine being with like one person because
They could
I was
crush
probably,
you.
and I was probably going to move soon. My body felt like I was probably going to leave soon. I'm not going to stay with you. I'm probably going to leave soon. That's just like what my cycle thinks. I'm going to leave soon. This doesn't make sense. And like love from a man, I don't even know what that is. I can't
Uh,
let you in. I can't do
because then you
that.
have even more power than you already don't know you have to crush me. Hmm.
So like I wouldn't connect with anyone. And then there was some talk about me, and there was moments where I was really depressed and I felt like this gross slut and like just like so many things. And then my mom kept fighting with him, and there was just like she would leave and she would get back, and then we'd move, and we would stay in the same little town, and it was just like people knew our business because the town was so tiny. Everyone knew about him and he still is a surgeon, like a medical, like like people have said that he could drill holes in other doctors, and that's how good he is. But he has his own traumas
Hmm.
from his childhood that are incredible. And so, and there's something very interesting because I was the only one that would sit with him when he was drunk. And I would sit with him and I would analyze and I would just be like, why are you doing this? And he would cry to me and talk to me, and I would just listen because I just wanted to understand. Like, I really wanted to get in his head and understand, like, why. And I was like 14, 15, but I wanted to know. I was like, there's no way. Like, you're such a good person when you're not drunk. Like, why? What is it? I don't get it. And like, I started to understand more and more. And then when I was 18, so high school was when I really dove deep into photography. And I even ended up getting a scholarship to go to Berkeley for school and all these things, which I ended up not doing. But I wanted to get as far away from home as I could possibly get. And my mom was like, you need to just sign up for college here. And I'm like, no, I can't. There is no way. I cannot do this.
You're like, you don't even understand.
You don't understand. Like, I can't be here. And like, it was just interesting because it was like I already didn't want to I didn't want to be around the people that I grew up with in high school because they knew the dark me. They knew that. And I wanted to get away. I wanted to start new, but it's like there's like it's a quote, I don't know how it goes, but it's something like you can move as many times as you want, but you're still taking you with
You,
you.
that's the only baggage you always carry.
You. So you can move to a new city, but it doesn't matter. You're moving to a new city with you.
Well,
That
and usually you're moving to the new city with the old you.
your old you. So then there was one, so I had graduated high school and it's December, it's Christmas. I'm depressed because most of my friends are in college and I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm like hanging out with like the high school seniors. Like, oh, like I want to get out. And my sister, she comes back at some point. My stepdad harasses my grandma and calls the border patrol. And that night, my older sister, grabs my grandma, rents a car, and drives to Miami, where my uncle lives. My mom's brother. Not She has two brothers. The one was the one that was like the hood rat, and then the other one was like a nerd that got all his shit together, built a business, moved to Miami, and did it. Like, does it. Like, I love him. I love him so dearly. And they moved here. So my sister came back for Christmas to visit, and she saw me and she's like, "What is wrong with you? Are you okay? Like, you're not
So
okay."
she finally,
She like
okay,
realizes that
she
I'm
saw
not
you.
okay. And then she was like, "No, you
Oh,
know
that's
what?"
gonna get
And
me.
we got really high. We got really, really high. And all of a sudden she goes, "I'm gonna buy a one-way ticket to Miami for you." And I was like, "What? What am I gonna do?" And she's like, "I don't know. You're gonna sleep on uncle's sofa, or you're gonna figure it out." So I moved to Miami, and it's funny because it's like there's so much, and it's 12:22. Because Miami was a whole nother story. And now I moved to Miami when I'm 19. And I live with my uncle. He gives me all these rules and regulations. I get to the point where it's 2 months in, I can't stand it because I've never had rules. My mom never gave me rules. I had no rules growing up. She would try and they would just not work. And I was a partier and I did what I wanted to. I smoked, I drank, I didn't care. Like, you can't tell me that I can't leave the house past 9 and can't come home past 12. Like, no, like that's not how this works. Like, I've come home at 6 in the morning and my mom's like, "Oh, you're home. Do you want something to eat?" Like, no. So I got I snuck out one night and I went to this club called Space. And over here it's like electronical music and hip hop downstairs. And I snuck out and I thought that this club, New York, everything closes at like 2, like I'll be able to like get back in there. I end up going to Space. Everyone is rolling on ecstasy and I'm like, "Oh my god." And then I'm like, "When are we leaving?" And they're like at 7. And I was like, "Oh my god, I can't do that." And then there was no Uber at the time, and the taxi back to my house would have been like $100. So I was just like, someone has to take me. So this guy ends up taking me at 6 in the morning. I get to my uncle's house and he's making coffee. And and he's like, "Stefania, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Just took a walk." I couldn't sleep. And I had, like put the big sweater, the big sweatpants over the dress, like that
Yeah,
whole thing. He comes, gives me a hug, and I reek of cigarettes because that club you can smoke cigarettes
yeah.
inside. I hate cigarettes. Um and so he hugs me and then he's like, "Stefania." And I was like, "What?" And then my breath reeks of alcohol because obviously now I'm anxious at the club. I need drinks because I don't know what to do. And he's like, "You're going to church with me today." And I was like, "No, I'm not." And at that point, I had already mentally had come to the point where I was like, "I am atheist. Leave me the fuck alone. Don't talk to me about God. Don't make me go to Bible study. Don't talk to me about it. I don't need Jesus. Like, you need to leave me alone." And like that's how I was. And he's like, "You need to leave. You need to get out of my house and you need to go back to your home in New York." I worked in the mall, and one of the women at the kiosks basically that she would like straighten the hair in the middle of the mall. I would sit with her sometimes. She would straighten my hair, and I told her what was going on, and she was like, "Oh, darling, don't worry. You come to me. You come to my house." She's like this Israel lady. She's like, I bring people on visa and they stay in my house. You have car, you have house, you have bathroom, everything. You have job, you work for me, you live there. And I was like, get it for sure. Let's do this. So I moved in with her. My uncle was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I found a place. He's like, no, 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 no. You're going back to New York. And I was like, no, no, no. I'm not going back there. You go get it. So then I end up going, just maybe try to make it short, but I end up living with them for a little bit. I get in a really bad car accident with my entire family. My mom comes to visit, and everyone's in the car. I'm the only one that gets hurt, but thank God. But it was pretty bad. My back gets pretty messed up. My butt cheek, my like entire side is like horrible. I can't work for the woman. So I had to move back to New York to like heal. I moved back for the summer, and then I had made a friend that she was like, hey, like I really would love for us to um for us to live together and you move here and whatnot. And I was like, dude, I don't know. So I ended up moving in with her September of 2000 and September of 2011. And I ended up moving in with her. And then she has 10 people in her house in a 3-bedroom. And they're Cubans. This is how Cuban Spanish people stack up. Stack up. And I'm just like, I can't do this. Her grandfather ends up dying. And then it was like her grandfather dies in like January, and the grieving process of everyone, it was just very interesting. I didn't want to be there and I didn't know what to do. I put an ad out on Facebook. A friend of mine was like, hey, you can live with me. I live on South Beach. Come live with me. My cousin is out for 3 months. He's trying to get his visa again in Italy. I move in with him. 2 weeks later, the man comes back, surprise, and we're like, what the fuck? No. I ended up moving in with another guy. I lived with this guy for a month. He ends up writing me a letter telling me that he's in love with me, that he can't live with me because he knows that I'm not in love with him and he can't do it. And then I end up connecting with one of my neighbors, and she's like, no, you move in with me. After a month, I live with her. She ends up getting evicted. And then I'm like, oh my God.
All you want is permanence. Oh, sorry.
That's all I want.
Oh,
That's all I want. And then while all of this process, I still have this insane like detrimental like process about my body. Like my body is like the devil.
well,
Like
yeah,
I hate my body.
you haven't grieved it or attached to it. No, no. This
I haven't
I'm
really.
gonna need, if possible, I'm gonna need to do another interview because it's 12:30 and we're not even through. We're not. You're not 20 yet.
I'm not even 20 yet. You haven't even heard. Yeah, there's a lot. That's a lot. Like I could have probably made it shorter, but this is good.
But
This is what it is.
it is what it is.
This is what it is. I'm
And,
super down.
and I so well finish what you were saying about the last one because I want a good.
So basically, I end up living with her. We end up finding a place together, me and her, that gets evicted. And then I move into this place with her, and it's just a studio with 2 beds. And then she gets angry one time because I made a friend on the beach and he needed to pee. So he came inside and pee and left his shirt. And then she gets really angry, tells me I'm not allowed to have people at the house, this and that. She ends up moving out, doesn't tell me, and brings 2 people to be on her bed, a couple, and the woman's pregnant. And I'm just like, what the fuck are you guys doing here? And she's like, oh, she told us that we could live here for 2 months. And I was like, what? Like, who are you? Like, what do you mean? And then I started getting very lonely. And then I started looking on Instagram for guys and all this stuff. And then I'll just end it at, then I met my boyfriend, not the one I have now, but then I met my first boyfriend that I was with for a year and a half. And that was my first boyfriend.
That's a perfect place to stop because then we can delve into that because that's the fact that you said a year and a half,
Year and a
which
half.
is pretty much longer than 99% of your housing projects that you lived with.
Literally.
it's a great thing because one of the things, and if you watch this again, you'll see one of the things I think one of your first experiences. It's traumatic because it was, I would say, impactful.
Mhm.
Was your when your mom meditated because like you paused and you were at ease and you were like telling that story. You were lighthearted. You were light, and then it was a complete change when you pointed out she didn't do that anymore.
Mm.
It and part of she didn't do it anymore because of him, because he was Catholic and because it wasn't her choice and so it wasn't her authenticity, it wasn't her, it was to fit in, to do that, which once again, fitting in is another mantra that good Lord. And so from because I there's no way we could unpack this all.
I know.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to end it there and then don't get off just for a second, please.
Okay.
But I really, really hope that you are able to make time sometime soon and we can start off from first long-term boyfriend
Okay.
because then I think that'll be more of the upswing.
Yeah, it is. I think the next one will be like the actual transition and the process of
Be-
everything after.
because with everything you're saying, there's so many like check boxes of she wants stability. She wants stability. Like literally.
And I would cry to my mom and tell her like, "Stop moving me." Like I would look at her and be like, "Please just stop. Like you don't understand what it's like having to go to a new school and then having to like it's almost like you were always picked on by being new, but you also had to because I was pretty or because I was funny, it was just like I automatically would get shifted into like the cool like groups, but then I would have to try very hard to stay in them and to
It's
keep
exhausting.
their it was the most it like my childhood was so exhausting because I was always trying to fit in.
And you think about that. Trying. When you're a kid, what should you try? I don't know. Grape Kool-Aid. Let's mix Kool-Aid flavors. Like that's what you should try. Don't eat yellow snow. Are you sure? Like you know what I mean? Like those like, trying, that's the stuff that is a safe try. Like there was no safety. You had no safety. Not emotional safety, not mental safety, very little physical safety. Like if you go on the hierarchy, you had none of those. Like you had something over your head, but you not always, and it wasn't guaranteed, and it was only guaranteed if everybody that you don't have control over does everything they're supposed to, which you know they're not going to because they've proven to you your entire life that they won't. And oh man, so I'm going to stop, but I really, really appreciate you taking so much time and being so open and being
Of course.
vulnerable.
Oh,
But you
being
say, of
vulnerable
course,
is
but
everything.
think about that is so contrary to what you've just explained for an hour. Of course, that's why it's funny because your natural now was always your natural, but it wasn't your normal.
It wasn't my normal.
But it's your natural. I think.